Tonight's guest was featured on episode 399, and on that show she told us about an encounter she had with a 10-foot Dogman years ago. But unfortunately, about a week ago, she had another encounter, but this time it was with a Dogwoman. Of course, I'm talking about Kim. Kim, thanks so much for coming back.
Oh, thank you for having me, Vic. It's a pleasure.
Well, you're welcome. Yeah, it's great having you. I'm not too keen on the idea why you are coming back, the fact you've had another encounter, but it happened, and there's nothing we can do about that. But before we talk about this latest encounter, Kim, for the people who missed episode 399, please tell them about yourself.
Oh, that's kind of a bland subject. I'm 65. I'm a retired nurse. I work as a sound therapist in a long-term facility for brain trauma and dementia patients. Part-time. The rest of the time I drive around and don't look for dogmen.
What's unfortunate is, it sure seems like sometimes they look for you.
Well, honestly, I never thought I'd see one, but I did see this little girl. I saw a little female. And actually, I was out driving around today, and I was so tempted to go back down that road. And believe me, I pay attention to the woods now as I drive down the street. And I told you I wasn't going to do that, but I'm doing it.
Well, I'm glad you're back out there doing what you love to do. And isn't it funny how you never expect to have a Dogman encounter until it happens?
Yeah, but I didn't technically have a Dogman encounter. I had a dog lady encounter.
Yeah, you're right. That you did. That you did. Huh. Speaking of that, last Tuesday around 1 p.m., you were heading to your mother's house, and that's when this encounter happened. How far were you, though, from home at the time?
Oh, it's only about a 7-mile trek between my house and hers, and I was probably midway. I was probably 3 miles from home.
That's pretty close. Can you even set foot in the woods now, Kim, without being a nervous wreck?
Probably the answer is yes, but maybe a shade under a nervous wreck. I'm still pretty leery. Pretty leery and a little bit hesitant. Even the woods, I live in front of a set of dense woods, and they drive me nuts.
From what I understand, you literally live feet from the woods.
Yeah, I don't have any back windows. I live in a motorhome, and the back of my house is not windows, it's a closet. So I can't see back there, and it's a good thing I can't, because it would drive me nuts.
Oh, I'm sure it would. At nighttime, I'm sure you close all the drapes and pull down all the blinds, though, don't you?
Oh, yes, definitely. Yeah, I've never been able to be in any kind of home with the windows open and the shades up at night. I'm gonna back that up. Not the windows open. I like the windows open, but I'm saying, the blinds up. I'm the kind of person that likes my windows open as long as I can have them open. But the curtains have to be down. I don't want to see what's looking in at me.
Yeah, you and a lot of other people. And I'm kind of that way in a way. I mean, I love living out in the country, but I never could understand why people would go to bed or when nighttime fell, them leaving their drapes open. It's almost like you're in a fishbowl. I know you don't have neighbors in most cases where people can just look out their window and in yours, but still, I just don't like that idea of having your drapes open at nighttime, even out in the country.
I had a girlfriend that lived in the country, and she didn't have drapes or curtains. And it was just crazy. I mean, using her bathroom drove me nuts because I felt like, anybody could see in. And I used to babysit for some people when I was a teenager. They didn't have any curtains. And they had this big black open sliding door, and I'd have to run across it.
Oh, no.
To get into the kitchen. Yeah, so yeah, I like curtains.
Yeah, I don't blame you. I understand. If you'd like to be able to listen to the show without ads and have full access to bonus content, that's an option. To find out how, please go to dogmanencounters.com/podcast. 2 seconds before you had this latest encounter, Kim, where were you at mentally when it came to your first one?
The first one I had probably pretty much healed from. I never imagined that I would ever see one again. I didn't know that's what I was looking at when I saw the first one until I ran into your show and talked to you. And of course now I'm obsessed and addicted to this kind of show. But I was pretty well over it, except for the going out at night thing in the woods. But any other time I was fine. Daylight. I much prefer daylight. Now I think I'm going to be a little bit hesitant about wood side roads from here on out.
And that's understandable, especially when you consider the pattern that you have to be noticing now. 2 encounters on the road. So I understand why.
Well, better to see them on the road than have them come find me.
Oh, of course. Yeah, if you have to have an encounter, it's most definitely better to have them on the road than have them come pay you a visit or look you up. How often did you think about Dogman before you had this most recent encounter? And when you did think about them, where did your mind go?
Well, I listen to so many of the programs, and I listen to them at night when I'm going to bed. It's the woods after dark when I think of them. I don't go out. I have to go out and hang up my clothes, and I don't like doing that with the dark woods. So it just depends on what I've listened to or what I've been, exposing myself to. I'm fascinated and intrigued by them. But yeah, I have a fear of them in the fact that I know they're everywhere now, especially now. It's probably worse now because I know they're absolutely everywhere. You told me they were, and now I know they are.
Yeah, unfortunately they are. If you've had a Dogman encounter and would like to speak with me about it, whether in private or on the show, please go to dogmanencounters.com and submit a report. If you've had a Bigfoot sighting and would like to be a guest on one of my 2 Bigfoot shows, please go to mybigfootsighting.com. As we've already established, you're featured on episode 399, and on that show you told us about your first encounter, the encounter you had with that 10-footer on that road that one night. Before we talk about this latest encounter, Kim, let's listen to that experience that you shared on that show.
Okay.
I live in a metropolitan area. We've got Kansas City, Kansas, and Kansas City, Missouri here. So this place is huge, and over the years, everything's grown together. But we still have a lot of rural area, a lot of farm area, a lot of back roads, especially out between Wyandotte County and Leavenworth County, which is where my actual encounter happened. Down in that area, it's Kansas Highway 5. And it runs between rural Wyandotte County on that's the north side, and rural Leavenworth County on the eastern side. It runs down along the Kansas River bottom. And the town down there is Walcott. There's a lot of odd activities down there and a lot of stories. And there's a family that was murdered. The son is the Andrew family. The son murdered his sister and his parents. And this story is supposed to be equal to In Cold Blood, but it's not as popular. So that's kind of the way it started. And also, it's down there along the river, and there's some caves. They're not very deep, but the kids would hang out in the caves. There's a lot of satanic panic going on. It was the 70s. So between the caves and the murder, and there's a mysterious farm, the Barton Farm. It's down below the dam of Wyandotte County Lake that was always locked up, and there were always stories. Now, none of this is my experience. These are just the things I was spinning around in as a teenage girl. And, you soak it in. You know how kids are. We go for the sensation, and I always thought that being in the caves was scandalous till I found out my mother actually had ever been there as a girl too. But I just, we thought we were getting by with stuff, and we ran those back roads. And my boyfriend was a country boy, and he drove an old farm truck, and we ran those roads. It was late July, and I think 1974. I was between 16 and 17, and he and I were spending a lot of time together because he was going off to the Army, and I was going to go to nursing school. And so we were spending a lot of time together, and we would just drive around and run the roads. And you know how teenagers do. They find little dark spots to kind of be all over, but we won't talk about that. So that's what we would do. We were running our area. It's a country highway. The trees don't hang over it. It's well kept. There's spaces on both sides of the roads, like maybe 12 feet off before the actual wooded areas start. And they have ditches, but lots and lots and lots of wood, lots and lots and lots of farms. And it's hilly. It has soft hills, and a lot of it is in the river valley. And the big hills that go up from where the river valley stops, and then you go up into the hills. And Wyandotte County Lake is hilly. It's actually very beautiful green. It's a beautiful area. The night we were out, it was beautiful. It was a summer night. We had the windows down on the truck, and we were just cruising along. You ready for my story?
Sure, by all means.
Okay, well, we were cruising along. I was playing with the radio. I was sitting next to him, so I was right in the middle of the seat next to him. That's what we kids do. And I was playing with the radio, and he was always griping at me because I didn't like his music. He'd say, well, you fix it. So I'm messing with the radio, and I feel him startle. He jumps. His body jumps. And I'm half bent down looking at the radio. As I sit up, I'm looking straight up into the slant of the windshield, and there is this creature. This creature's already in front of the truck. He's probably taken his first step. And I look straight up into this creature, about 10 foot tall. I'll describe him in a minute, but 10 foot tall, and he's just walking in front of the truck. He's not even looking at us. And as we approach, I think the first time I saw him, we were maybe 20 feet from him. And as we got closer, we got to maybe 10 foot from him before he had time to take 2 more steps. And by that time, he was on the other side of the road. So you're talking 3 strides to cross this highway. And how wide is a highway? 24 feet? I don't know. But anyway, he took 3 strides, and he was on the other side of the road. And we had our windows down. We didn't even consider it. Both the windows were down the truck. Neither one of us even thought about this till later. So my boyfriend's slowing down because he's in shock. And I'm looking at this thing, and I'm saying, no, don't stop. Let's go. Take me home right now. And as I'm watching this creature, it goes to the other side of the road. It turns around and looks at us, and just stands there and looks at us as I drive away. It stood there just as straight up tall and just watched us. It had red eyes. And he did nothing except just walk across the highway and turn around and look at us. And he stood there, and I watched him. I turned around and looked at him through the back window of the truck, and he didn't move. I mean, we were way, way, way out of sight before I ever saw an indication that he moved off the road. But anyway, back to the creature. He was, I'd say, 10 foot tall, and I'm taking that from the size of the truck, because this is a farm truck, and they didn't have little tires, and they weren't close to the ground. This was just an old farm truck, and it was really tall, because it took me a lot of effort to get up into this truck. Didn't have running boards, and I almost had to run and jump up into the seat. So I'm saying this creature was 10 foot tall, and it had dog's feet. I don't know if there were claws on the feet. I don't remember that, but they were dog's feet. They were huge. If they were human feet, they would have been like a size 12. And then he had a knee. He had a knee on his leg. And they weren't skinny legs. They were pretty built legs, except down at the bottom where it bent and came down into the foot. But the feet were huge. And he was standing straight up, but he was just a little bit curved. I don't know if that's the natural stance. And I'm seeing him from the side, totally from the side. I'm seeing all this. And his arms hung down past his knees, and he had claws, long claws, maybe an inch, and long fingers, hands, not paws, hands. Now, I didn't see a thumb. I saw 5 fingers hanging. One was a little shorter than the others, but he did not have an opposable thumb, but he did have what it looked like a hand. And he's just walking along, just swinging his, like, he was out in the middle of New York, sightseeing, just walking across the road. Beautiful, dark gray fur, maybe some black, but I saw gray. We had a gibbous moon that night, so there was quite a bit of light. There weren't any street lights, but I could see him pretty clearly. And I'm seeing him from the side, and he has a snout, pretty long snout, but not, I'd say wolfish looking. I've heard shepherd, but I see wolf. I pay a lot of attention to wolves. I support a lot of wolf saving groups and stuff. So I'm saying wolf because I've always loved wolves, and this brings wolf up to me, not dog. but a doggy looking face, long snout. And he had ears, but at that point in time, I didn't see the ears until clearly, and I'll describe that, as after he walks across the road, and he did not have a tail, because I saw him. I saw his back end. He did not have a tail. Very wide shoulders, very built chest, tall, standing up pretty straight. It's pretty amazing after I found out what this thing was, how human it looks in its torso. I didn't see a neck, didn't have a tail. Anyway, he crosses the road and he just turns around nonchalantly and is looking at us. Well, as he's looking at us, I can see his face better and I can see the snout better. And he has longish fur around his head. On his chest and his tummy, belly area, the fur doesn't look that long. But as he walked across the road, I saw the fur down his back. And when he turned around, I could see the fur up over his head. But his ears, tall, I'd say 3 inches tall, and they were both turned in towards each other, straight up. But they bowed in towards each other, and I thought I was looking at Satan. I thought those were horns when I first saw this thing. And then the red eyes didn't help, because there was a rumor about the Satanists doing rituals down there in the caves and stirring up Satan. And there was a rumor about Satan walking around down there in the Walcott Bottoms. So when I saw this guy, and I did not see if it was a guy or not, I'm just thinking because it was such a huge creature. So I can't tell you it was male for sure or not. But anyway, that's why I thought what I was looking at was Satan until many years later. And I started hearing about your show and stuff just here recently. Did I realize, or did I even start thinking about this guy again? And yes, it scared me to death. It really did. Didn't talk about it. I tried to get my boyfriend to talk about it, but he wouldn't. I think he said something to his dad about it, and his dad told him, just don't bring that up, and you didn't see it. And of course, I never said anything to my parents because I thought I was somewhere I wasn't supposed to be, and I would have gotten punished for being where I was. So I didn't say anything.
All right, Kim, now that we listened to your first encounter, please tell us about this most recent one now. Give us every last detail that comes to mind.
Okay. This occurred exactly a week ago. Exactly a week ago today. I was on my way to my mother's, and she lives in the next town. It just takes me probably 15 minutes to get to her house, but I take all back roads. I take back roads because of my eyesight. I don't drive on the main roads. And I don't normally take the road. I probably drive this road maybe 1 out of 10 times when I go that way. There's several ways I can go. And I just happened to want to go up that road last Tuesday because it was 75 degrees. The sun was shining. It was beautiful. I wanted to look at the trees. And that's it curves and curves and curves. It has a lot of switchbacks on itself, and it goes up and down hills at the same time. And it's a very short distance. It's like maybe 1.5 miles max, the length of this entire road. And I decided to go that way. So got up in there, and I actually passed the last house on the road. And there aren't any houses on this wooded strip that I drive through. There's houses at the beginning and at the end of this, but the whole area that's all twisty-turny and is woods. There are no right-of-ways. There's no houses, just the road. And it almost is narrower than the rest of the paved roads around. But anyway, I got up in there and I heard footsteps. And they were 2 bipedal, step, 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 step. I kept thinking, well, maybe it's a horse. Maybe it's a deer, but I thought, well, no, it can't be. It's only 2 steps. It'd be 4. And there are no ditches, and their road would be very difficult to ride a horse on. I think that it would be a little bit slick and dangerous because of the curves and cars. Now, 1 car came through the whole time I was in there either. So the cars are very few and far between, I would think. Anyway, I heard footsteps in the leaves. It was like somebody was shushing their feet through the leaves. You know how little kids walk through the leaves and kick? Well, I probably thought about this for about 30 seconds, wondering what it was. And I looked in my side mirrors, my rearview mirror. It was hard to turn around and look out the window on my left-hand side out the door because I was trying to drive these curves. And about the time I got tired of trying to stretch and break my neck looking to see what it was. I stopped. And the creature that was making the noises walked up to me at about the same time. She was about 12 to 15 feet from me, and it was a little gray female Dogman. And she was as startled as I was. I mean, I really startled her. She started to go down on all fours, but she changed her mind and she stood back up. And she was standing pretty tall. I know that they have kind of a hunch to them, but she seemed to be standing very upright for some reason. Maybe it was just the way she was standing, because she was actually below me. The woods are lower than the street. So she startled, and I startled, and we're both sitting there looking at each other. And she actually dipped her head and was looking at me like through her eyelashes at first. And then she straightened up, and about the same time she straightened up, the sun came out of the clouds, and she was like spotlighted with this sunlight. So I saw everything about her, head to toe, her little toes, feet, everything. I saw everything. But back to her facial expressions. She was looking at me through her eyelashes, straightened her face up, and then almost tipped her nose up in the air. You know, like, aha. She had a very sassy attitude. Her little tail was switching the whole time. She had a little gray fuzzy tail, and she was gray. But anyway, her little nose was in the air, and when she brought her nose back down, she bared her teeth. And it didn't look like she was smiling or grinning at me. I left. I didn't sit around any longer and look at this young lady because I knew her daddy was somewhere. She wasn't very tall. She was about 5 foot. I'm about 5'1", so she's not very tall, and she was small, and they're shaped different than the males. She's got the triangular upper body shape from the shoulders to the waist, but it's not as severe, and their little pelvic area is different, rounder, bigger. It makes sense. They're female. And she had mammary glands. I think I counted about 4. And they weren't completely developed. She wasn't completely developed. I don't think by looking at her that she was in mating age just yet. So anyway, after I left, I just went on to my mom's, and I'll go back and describe her. She's gray and had golden eyes, which lit up in the sunlight when the sun hit her. Her little ears, she had little pointed ears. They were probably 2.5 inches long, high, and they were going like little satellite dishes the whole time she was looking at me, and I was looking at her. And she has the gray tail, probably maybe 3 feet long, and it was just swishing the whole time, like she was some ornery kitty cat. She was just swishing that little tail. Very sassy attitude. Totally silver gray. I saw her hands. She kept her hands kind of suspended at her sides, but bent up. They weren't straight down. She kind of kept them bent up. I saw her hands, and she has the fingers with the nails. Her nails weren't as long as the previous creature that I saw. Her little nails were maybe 1 inch long. And she had the typical canine legs and feet for the Dogman. They look like giant rabbit feet, and then they turn back and become, she had knees. But her bottom half is definitely looking like a dog. She didn't, she doesn't have the type 3 legs. She's a definite, just bona fide Dogman person, little girl. I had the feeling the whole time that her daddy was somewhere. And it took everything I could not to go down that road today, because I was at my mother's again today, and I wouldn't go down the road. I sure wanted to, but I'm so afraid I'll run into her. Actually, I kind of would like to run into her. Vic has asked me would I ever go looking for Dogman, and I don't think so, but I wouldn't mind seeing that young lady again. She was very, very interesting and very unusual. I don't hear much about dog ladies on any of the shows, very seldom. And she was not full grown, so probably maybe next spring. I mean, we don't know what their growth phases are. We don't know how they mature and how long it takes them to grow from a pup to an adult, so we don't know when she might be, but maybe next spring. I mean, I don't know why he was, her father or her brother or whoever was in charge of her was letting her roam around, but he wasn't far. And I'm kind of glad he wasn't anywhere where I saw him, because I think I would have been scared. I wouldn't have been able to drive. I probably would have been scared out of my skin, but she was a delight and a privilege, and I can't believe that she let me see her. I can't believe that her people let her show herself like that. But she was just so blatantly she was beautiful. She was absolutely beautiful. Beautiful creature. Her little nose, her little snout. I have 2 Pomeranians, and I have a male and I have a female. And my little female has a nice short little snout and looks very feminine. And this little girl kind of reminds me of that. Her little snout was triangular shaped and short and very, very feminine. Everything about her screamed female.
Well, I'll tell you what, Kim, if you have to have a Dogman encounter, thank goodness you had one like that this time around. That sure beats the pants off of that first one with the 10-footer, doesn't it?
Yes. In contrast, it's almost comical. I mean, here I think I'm looking at Satan, and then I have this little animated creature in front of me today that looks like some little girl's plushie. And I'm not belittling that she's a Dogman. I'm just saying I was going to say she's so innocent. She wasn't innocent. She was just as cocky and sassy as she could be, prancing around. So I don't know. Maybe she thought, a human woman, and now it's my turn to, I don't know. But she was absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, sounds like she must have been. It's fun how you described her as being such a sassy little thing.
I've given her a name.
You have? What name?
Her name's Ember.
Ember.
Because of her fiery eyes amongst the ashes of her gray fur.
Well, that's a great name for it, sounds like. I like that. It's clear that you have fears that stem from your encounters, Kim, but can you think of any fears you have now that you consider to be unreasonable?
No. I think, fear is a natural defense mechanism. And the people that aren't fearful have got something wrong with them. I mean, if you just go boldly into this unknown world of the Dogman, I think that's just a little bit careless and, I don't know, just bad.
There are dogmen out there that will hurt you, so you don't know which one you're running into. So it is good to be on guard. When you started hearing those footsteps, how far did they seem to be from you?
I think they sounded like they were 20 or 30 feet to my left in the woods. And that's why it didn't make any sense for me to even think about it being a horse. Because it was in the woods. And I think she was coming at me in a diagonal because of the way the road meanders. I think she was coming in a diagonal, and I really don't think she was expecting me any more than I was expecting her.
She might not have been expecting you, but she had every opportunity to conceal herself. But instead of doing that, she forced the issue and came right there within about 15 feet from you.
Yeah, she wasn't far at all. Yeah, it was almost unnerving after I stop and think about it.
Oh, I'm sure it was. Really unnerving. If you don't mind revealing this info, and again, there's no pressure to do this, but if you don't mind revealing it, what kind of a car do you drive?
A Dodge Journey?
Oh, okay. A Journey.
Yeah, a Dodge Journey, yeah.
So you weren't exactly riding up in the clouds, but it's not like you're driving a compact car then.
No, I wasn't sitting on the ground in a car. No, I was up high, but still not very big.
Yeah, I guess sitting in a Journey, it's not going to be that much higher than a car, so I see what you mean. Were your windows up at the time or down?
They were down until I saw her, and then they were up, and the doors were locked. The doors lock automatically. When you start the car, the doors lock. But the windows were down, but they were up when I saw her. As soon as I saw her, I put the windows up. They were all down.
I'll bet you're glad those doors were locked.
Yes, I was. But you know what? I didn't have to stop. I could have just kept going.
Yeah, you could have. That's true. Yeah, most people would have kept on going. Or if they did stop and they saw her approach to 15 feet from you, they would have stomped on the gas and gotten out of there. So I'm impressed the fact that you had the gumption to stay there and observe her.
Well, I knew what I was looking at. I at least wanted to look at her. Because I had stopped. I hadn't stopped to look at her. I had stopped to see what was walking. And I did see what was walking. And after about a minute, I was gone. It didn't take her long to make all her little faces at me. I wasn't there very long.
Do you think having this most recent experience has helped bring you to terms with that first encounter you had with the 10-footer?
Yeah, I do think so. I knew that they were creatures that deserve to exist like we do, that they have rights and they're just one of God's creations. But after seeing her, I know, that's sealed in my heart that yes, they belong here too. I think they're flesh and blood. I don't think they're anything spiritual or something. I don't know where they came from, but I don't think they're from a lab. I don't think they're experiments. I think the government knows what they are and where they came from, but I don't think they were anything evil. I really don't. I listen to and, think about all the different theories, and I just think they're creatures of the earth. Just like me. She's just another girl.
When you think about it, that 10-footer you saw so many years ago, and her included, neither one of those two ever tried to attack you, so at least we know those two weren't evil to the core and prone to trying to rip your head off at the first opportunity, because if that's what they were all about, they would have tried to do that, but they didn't.
Well, the one that was marching around down in the bottoms when I saw him, the 10-footer, of course, I was a girl. I was 16, 17, I can't remember. But there weren't stories going around about cattle or any of that down there. If I had heard those kind of stories, then I probably would think differently about him. But he wasn't going around causing havoc. There were rumors about him, but they were saying he was Satan marching around down there. But he wasn't doing anything, or his clan. They weren't tearing anything up. They were just there. But why do they need to attack when they're right there? They were right down there along the river, and there's deer everywhere, so they don't need to attack the cattle. And there's no stories going around up in here either. I mean, we've got farmers all over, and there's nothing going on here either, that at least not that they're talking about in the news.
Oh, I believe it. Yeah, I don't doubt that at all. Now, it might sound counterintuitive to you, Kim, but if I'd have an encounter with a Dogman, I'd much rather have an encounter with a 10-footer than a 6-footer, and I'll tell you why.
They're mature.
That's right, the maturity. They don't want any trouble or any problems. They're not out to cause any issues. They just want to do what they need to do and move on.
Is that why she marched up to me and made faces at me?
Yeah, more than likely that was a function of being immature. So, yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. But then again, she was a female, so that does make her less likely to cause trouble than a male would, a juvenile male would. So, in my opinion, if you have to have an encounter with a juvenile, it's definitely better to have an encounter with a dog woman than a dog man. So you got lucky. How about that?
I do consider it lucky. I think it was a privilege. I do. That's how I look at it. I don't care what anybody else thinks. I haven't told my mother yet, but I'm going to. I haven't got around to telling her.
Oh, you haven't told her yet?
No, I go out there like 3 times a week, and I haven't told her yet. No, but I will. I just haven't told her.
How do you think she's going to respond?
She'll probably just look at me.
I believe it. Yeah, I don't doubt that. When you saw her for the first time, Kim, how was she holding her ears?
Well, when the whole time I was looking at her little ears were, moving around. She was moving them. I don't know. They weren't in any position because they kept moving. She'd turn them towards me, and then she'd turn them away. That's what made me think there was another one, because she would turn them away like she was listening for something in a different direction. And that's what really made me think that there was another one close, because it's like she was listening for them. She would turn towards me, and I wasn't saying or making any noises, just my car sitting there running, and it's not loud.
You're probably right about that. It probably wasn't at the Dogman off there in the bushes or in the woods monitoring the situation that she was looking at. So, it's good you realize that. Did you notice anything interesting as far as interesting features about her ears?
Well, they're not furry. They're not furry. I mean, if they do have fur on them, it's a short fuzz. But she had these little fuzzy things at the tops of them. Little hairs sticking up at the tips. Little fluffs, tufts. She had tufts on her ears.
Did her ears resemble cropped Doberman ears, or did they look like normal ears?
Well, no, because normal ears would be what I would see on my dogs. They're just perfect little triangles. These were more elongated up to a point. So I would say the Doberman thing. But they were much cuter than Doberman ears.
Sounds like you were taken by her. She must have been something else.
No, she was just she was just beautiful. I am taken by her. I don't know how you can be so enthralled and so afraid of something at the same time, but I am.
I know you could be. No, that makes sense. You're looking at a dog woman that's not supposed to be in existence, but bam, there she is. So it does make sense. You mentioned that she stood tall in the early stages of the encounter. You think she might have been trying to make herself seem more imposing by doing that?
Possibility, because her first reaction was try to go down on all fours. Because I saw her shrinking, and then all of a sudden she changed her mind and just popped right up there, as tall as she could be.
That would make good sense. When she did stand up tall like that, was she kind of wobbly and unstable, or was she pretty settled?
No, she was very stable. She didn't wobble around in it ever.
I see. You told us about her whipping it around, but did you ever see her put her tail between her legs?
No.
Dogmen do that sometimes. I'm not sure if they do that as some kind of a threat display or what, but sometimes they do that.
If you look at dog behavior, they don't do that to be bold. They do that that's a fear movement by a dog, to put their tail between their legs. The old saying, put your tail between your legs and run?
Oh, of course, but the reason why I didn't go in that direction is we don't have any idea how much of what we know about dogs crosses over to them. So maybe that's why, but we don't know for sure.
But I'm just saying, me as a greenie wouldn't take it that way. If she'd put her tail between her legs, I wouldn't have taken it as a bold thing. I would have taken it as timidity or fear. No, it wasn't. She was flipping it around behind her.
As you told us about that, I keep trying to picture that. I bet she was a sassy little thing.
She was. The whole demeanor was just almost comical. I didn't, I want to be respectful to her, but it was comical. She was almost funny, her reactions, and her little tail was flipping around. And I just thought, little Miss Sassy Pants, oh, where's your daddy? I gotta go.
Well, maybe you don't want to know where her daddy is.
No, I didn't. He was probably closer than I would care to know.
Yeah, he might have been.
Now, she wasn't by herself.
Yeah, I've got serious doubts that she was. I'll bet you're right.
She wasn't. I wouldn't even know that she wasn't by herself. I would wager money on that if there was any way to find out. She was not by herself. There was no way they're going to let her out to just bop around in the woods like that. No, that's not even their normal behavior.
Yeah, a sassy little thing like that. I bet you're right. I sure wish I would have been there to see her do all these things that you told us about her doing. That would have been priceless.
It is priceless. At that point in time, I wouldn't even have known where my phone was, and there was no way I was going to take my eyes off of her for fear Daddy was somewhere. My fear is not of her, it's of her daddy.
Well, if you would have had a notion to pull out that phone, I'm just glad you never tried to do that anyway, because this way you're able to soak up the moment and you didn't miss a thing. You soaked it all in.
Yeah, but the only photograph of it's in my head.
Well, there's nothing wrong with that. That's good. That's a good thing. I mean, you soaked in the experience and yeah, you're never going to forget that. And if you pulled out your phone, who knows what the quality of the picture would have been, and people probably wouldn't have believed you anyway, so at least you made the most of the experience. Considering how easily she could have remained hidden from you, do you have any theories on why she revealed herself like she did?
Well, she was prancing through the woods from the sound of her footsteps. She was, prancing along through the woods. I think she was just out to find something ornery to do. And I came along.
Looking for trouble in a way, and here comes Kim.
Yeah, looking for trouble, here comes Kim. That's about the way it goes in my life anyway.
No, I can relate. Did her movements seem to be smoother than the 10-footer's movements?
No, it's like he was, okay, something that's soft and hasn't quite dried yet, that's still pliable. He seemed like he had been well dried for a long time, the way he was just so in control of his body. She wasn't ungraceful or anything. She just was more like a kid. I don't know how to explain it.
No, that makes sense. I think you did a great job of explaining it. You told us about her height, but what about her weight? If you had to guess, how much do you think she weighed?
Oh, maybe 120 pounds.
Wow, small.
Yeah, she was tiny. I mean, I can't say enough that she was not grown. She was budding, but she was far from grown. And her other litter mates might have been somewhere in the area too. Boy, wouldn't that have been something?
Yes, it would have been. More fun than you would have been able to handle, possibly.
Oh, I've been long gone.
Yeah, I'll bet, and can't say I'll blame you. Now, if I remember correctly, did you say that she had 4 memories?
Yes, I counted 4. I don't know if she had a few more on her lower down, but 2, 4. No, I think it was 4. Yeah, she had 4.
How would you describe them? Can you tell us anything more?
About her mammary glands?
Yes.
Let me try to think. They were definitive, but they weren't that big. But they still were, you could see that she had little breasts. Everything on her was so little.
And like you said, she was just blossoming. She was just starting to fill out.
Right. She was just starting to, she was probably just realizing she was even a girl. Maybe that's what was wrong with her. But yeah, she was just starting to blossom. Yeah.
Now here's something I'm not all that clear on. You said she had nails, but did they look like 1-inch fingernails or claws?
They weren't thick. And I don't know if she had nails on her feet or not. I saw her feet, but they were in the leaves. So I couldn't see the ends of her toes. But her fingers, her hands, she had nails, but they weren't thick. At least not yet. I'm sure they'll get that way, but they weren't thick. They weren't like paper thin either, but they weren't that thick, heavy, long, dagger looking nail.
They weren't all that long, but did they look to be sharp?
Yeah, they were sharp. Yeah, I wouldn't want to shake hands with her, no.
That makes 2 of us. What color were they, though?
Dark, gray or black.
I see. You told us about her muzzle. What color was the tip of her nose, though?
White. You mean her nose? Her nose was black, but she had some white on her muzzle.
She sure must have been something to see. Wow. It's a lot to take in. Well, Kim, it's about time for us to get out of here, but before we do you have any closing comments you'd like to share?
Probably the same as I said before. They just have the right to live, and I can't see hunting them down for any reason, scientific or otherwise. But I feel that way about the Sasquatch and Bigfoot and all those too. I think they just need to be left alone. And watch where you're driving in Kansas along the side roads.
I'd say so. You've had 2 encounters with them doing that, so.
Yeah, on back roads. It kind of makes me, like back roads.
No, I get it. Yeah, I love to drive back roads too, way out in the country, but yeah, you've had a bad go of it, so I can understand why you'd be kind of reluctant to do that now. Well, Kim, I can't thank you enough for coming back on and updating us on this most recent experience. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for having me. It was a delight.
Oh, you're welcome. It's been a great time. Well, thanks again so much, and have a great night.